Hello, this is part 2 of what a harmonic chart is and how to interpret it. If you have not watched part 1, I have a link to the first part here at the bottom of this slide. You probably want to watch that first, especially if you're not familiar with harmonic charts, before you watch this one. And what I'm going to do in this tutorial video is I want to give some practice in looking at aspects in the harmonic chart and seeing what they are in the natal chart, because this can be slightly confusing when you first learn it. It's actually simple, but it may take a little while to sink in. And I mentioned this in the first video, but I want to give some practice with this. What I have here to demonstrate this idea is I have a natal chart on the left and the harmonic chart on the right for the same person. This is Buddy Holly. I'm in the Series 2.0 software. I'm capturing a smaller part of my screen, kind of zooming in so that these wheels are about as big as we can fit on the tutorial video. But if I scroll down, it tells me that this chart is a fifth harmonic chart. The one on the right, the one on the left is the natal chart. Now, I want to go over this. Let's say you're looking at this fifth harmonic chart. So just look at the chart on the right, and we see that here's the Sun at 15 Cancer, squaring Jupiter and Uranus, which are at 6. Uranus is 16 Libra, Jupiter is 18 Libra, so the Sun is square to Uranus and Jupiter. How do we interpret that? The fifth harmonic is the chart of play. Square means you want to achieve something. So Buddy Holly wants to achieve something in his play having to do with Sun and Uranus. Sun and Uranus means spontaneity, means he wants to work to achieve a playful spontaneity. How do you work to achieve a playful spontaneity? You play rock and roll music, for example, because it's very spontaneous, very lively, very electric, and you work at creating the best effect, and you engage in that activity. You don't just passively watch it. So that's the basic meaning. Now here's the thing I want to go over. I mentioned this in the first video, but let's go over this. Some of these aspects actually reduce to smaller fractions. Just want to give some examples of that. So in these labels for these aspects, one says 1/20th, one says 7/20ths, and two of them say 1/4. So of all these aspects between Sun and Neptune, it looks like there are 4 aspects that are within orb. These 4 aspects between Sun and Neptune, squared to Venus, Jupiter, Uranus, 4 of them are in orb. 2 are reducing to lower aspects. 2 are reducing to 1/4, and 2 are not. So 2 are 20th harmonic, they have a 20 in the denominator, and 2 of them have 4 in the denominator. So the idea is that some of these aspects are actually more basic than what would be in the harmonic chart. If it's not reduced, what aspect is it? What aspect would a square be in the fifth harmonic chart? You just take the harmonic and multiply it by the denominator of the aspect. A square is a 1/4 aspect, right? Square is 1/4. Take the 4, multiply it by 5, so it would be a 20. So the aspect that's a 1/20th and the one that's a 7/20ths are really 20th harmonics. They are really struggling to play. The others are squares in the natal chart. So let's look at it. Let's look at the natal chart. On the left, you see Jupiter at 15 degrees Sag, Neptune at 16 degrees Virgo. What aspect is that? It's a square. So he has Jupiter squared Neptune in his natal chart. Buddy Holly has Jupiter squared Neptune in his natal chart. In the fifth harmonic chart, what happens? They're still square. The orb has gotten bigger. It's about a 4-degree orb, which happens to be about the maximum. So it looks like it's very slightly out of orb. But Neptune, oh no, it's just within orb. It's just less than a 4-degree orb. Jupiter's 18, Libra 35, Neptune is 22, Cancer 17, just less than 4 degrees, so it's within orb. So this 1/4 here, it's hard to see which line these labels are for because all the lines are so close together. But this 1/4 must be the label from the Neptune to the Jupiter, telling us it's actually a 1/4. So the point is this. some of the aspects are actually lower harmonics, and they continue to appear in higher harmonics. And that's the case with the Jupiter and Neptune. And if it does not reduce, the harmonic will be the denominator of the actual aspect, will be the denominator of the aspect in the harmonic chart times the harmonic chart. So these are square aspects in the harmonic chart, right? Square aspects in the harmonic chart, which means 1/4. You multiply 4 times the harmonic, which is 5, which is 20. So the 20 means it did not reduce. And for example, let's take, what's a good example here? Sun and Uranus. Sun and Uranus are in a very close square aspect, 1 degree orb. Sun is at 15 Cancer, Uranus is at 16 Libra. Now let's look at Sun and Uranus in his natal chart. Here's Sun at 15 Virgo, Uranus at 9 Taurus. Well, they're clearly not squared. They're not squared, so it must be one of the 20ths, and it's got to be the 7/20ths, because 1/20th would be a small distance. This is a pretty big distance. So it's the 7/20ths. So Uranus is 7, this label right here, may be difficult to read, 7/20ths is for the line between Sun and Uranus. So Sun and Uranus really are in 20th and really are wanting to play. He wants to create excitement and electricity. Sun Uranus, he wants to engage in that activity. He plays the music, and it's an entertainment. So it's 5. It's a creative endeavor. On the other hand, the aspects like the Jupiter square Neptune are in the natal chart. Jupiter square Neptune, which means that this square, and I talked about this in the first video, of him being very expansive, very visionary. He actually has a Sun-Neptune conjunction, square Jupiter. Both Jupiter and Neptune are expansive in different ways. So he's got his eyes on a dream, some far-off fantasy or vision. That visionary, dreamlike quality is going to carry through into his creativity, because it's still here, tying up with other planets in the 5th harmonic. If these orbs are larger, if the aspect wasn't as tight, these orbs in the 5th harmonic would have gotten very big, and it would have gone out of orb. So, because the aspect has small orbs in the natal chart, some of these aspects are still within orb in the 5th harmonic chart, and other planets are getting involved in aspecting the Sun, Jupiter, Neptune. Here's Jupiter, here's the Sun and Neptune. Venus and Uranus are making aspects in the 5th harmonic chart to the Sun, Jupiter, Neptune, bringing Venus, Uranus, we talked about as being related to music, Venus, Jupiter, Uranus being related to enthusiastic music, bright, happy music, and it ties up with all his visions and his dreams. So what I want to go over here is the idea that sometimes the aspects reduce and sometimes they don't reduce. And I wanted to specifically go over how do you know if it does not reduce. Let's take another example. Let's take the Sun 3/40ths to Mars. Sun 3/40ths to Mars. So do you think that is an aspect that's also a lower harmonic, and how would you know? Is this also a lower harmonic, and how would you know? Well, what you can do is find the number that you multiply times 5. Why 5? Because we're in the 5th harmonic. What number multiplied by 5 equals 40? That's what you can think. What number multiplied, let me say that again, what number multiplied by 5 equals 40 times 8? And this is, you could, as you get experience doing this, if you're not already, you'll realize that this is a 3/8 aspect. It's not a square, it's not an opposition, it must be one of the eighths. It's a 3/8, 135. So 8 times 5 is 40. It's beautiful. There it is. So the Sun Mars is also striving to play, because 8th harmonic, similar to squares, is also dynamic and active and wants to achieve things. And look at this, his Mars is 11/40ths, it tells me, to Uranus. So these aspects are not getting reduced. They're only in the fifth, which means they only have to do with play. So you might say, Mars, Uranus, wow, he's very impatient. Oh, he's got a bad temper. Is that true? With a Mars-Uranus aspect, does Buddy Holly have a bad temper? Is he feisty, etc.? Only in relationship to play, because it's an aspect in the fifth harmonic. So everything in the fifth harmonic is only about play, and it does not reduce to any lower harmonics. So it's strictly in his play. If his band members don't show up for practice, he's going to get upset. He really wants to play. It's important to him. It's like a kid in the sandbox getting angry because there's nobody to play with, or there's no sand in the box. It got wet or something. He's got to play. It's very important to him. He gets impatient about it. But he could be very patient about other things. So that's the interesting thing about people. We're very specific, and we're impatient in certain areas. So we know he's impatient. He's got to play. He's got to do it. It's really important to him. And how do I know it's only play? Because it's a 40. Again, what you do is you find the number that you multiply times 5. 8 times 5 equals 40. This is, as you get experience, you'll realize that this is a 3/8 aspect, so it's only in the play. Now let me give you an example where it does reduce. Another example. Let's look at the moon trine Mercury. I'm in the harmonic chart. Moon at 29 Pisces is trine Mercury at 28 Scorpio, and it says 1/3. Right on this line, it says 1/3. So it's a 1/3 aspect. This label is the label in the real chart. In the real chart, on your left, is the only real chart. It's a 1/3. So that's telling me it reduced. It's actually a trine in the natal chart. And there it is. Moon is trine Mercury. So if I didn't have two wheels up here, like I do now, and I was only looking at this wheel, I would know. I do know that this moon is trine Mercury in the natal chart, which I can see on the left, even if I don't have the natal chart here. Right? If this natal chart is here, I know because it told me. It tells me right there, it's 1/3. Now, why do I want to know that moon is trine Mercury rather than being not reduced? If this was not reduced, if the moon Mercury did not reduce to a simpler aspect, a lower harmonic, what aspect would it be? It would be 1/3, because a trine is 1/3, times 5, it would be a 15th. So it might say something like 1/15 or 2/15. In fact, here it is. Neptune to Pluto. Another trine, but this one says 2/15. You're starting to get this? So the Neptune to Pluto is a trine. How do I know it's a trine? Because it's green. And it looks like about 1/3 of a circle. And if I look at the positions, Neptune is 22 Cancer, Pluto's 21 Scorpio. Any astrologer knows instantly that those are water signs. They trine each other. So they're trine, but in the harmonic chart. So what aspect is it in the natal? Take the harmonic, which is fifth, because I'm looking at a fifth harmonic chart, times the aspect. The denominator of the aspect is 3. 5 times 3 is 15. So this really is a trine, and only a trine in the fifth. Is Neptune and Pluto are harmoniously trine, playing with each other. But the moon Mercury, compare that to the moon Mercury. Moon Mercury are working smoothly with each other. But let me give you a question. Quiz time. See if you can get the answer to this. Do Moon and Mercury means he thinks about psychology and history, and he has a good intuitive communication with people. Let's call it pleasant personal communication. Let's just call it that, just to give it a term. Is this pleasant personal communication from this trine only when he plays, or does it apply to lots of areas of life? Moon trine Mercury, let's just call it pleasant personal communication. You may have a different interpretation, but let's just use that for now. Pleasant personal communication. Is it only in his play, or is it in lots of areas of life? Which one? A or B? Answer is lots of areas of life, because it's trine. It's not only in the natal chart. It says 1/3, and sure enough, there it is. So sometimes the aspect that's a lower harmonic, like a trine, gets repeated in higher harmonics. That's the idea. The lower harmonic can get repeated, and it gets repeated when the orb is very small. Look at this orb. The moon, 11 Gemini 59, Mercury, 11 Libra 47. It's only 12 minutes. It's a really strong trine, small orb. And when the orb is small, it tends to get repeated in other harmonics. And here it is repeating again. It means that his nice personal communication is involved in his play. 5 stuff, his creative and playful side. And it's also involved in other things. So the conclusion is that if the aspect does not reduce down, it applies only to this chart. Only to this chart. How do I know it's not reducing down? Because the denominator that's shown to me in the label is the denominator of the aspect times whatever harmonic I'm in. Right? So, again, 8 times 5, we're in the 5th harmonic. This is a 3/8. I know that because it's not a conjunction, it's not an opposition, it's not a square, it's a solid line. The only other solid lines drawn in here are the 1/8 and the 3/8. That's the way we set it up. The dashes are 16ths, so I know this line isn't a conjunction. I know it's not an opposition because they're not opposite to each other. I know they're not square because they're not in the same degree of, say, cardinal signs. It's got to be a 3/8. It's the only thing left. So it's 1 of the 8ths. 8 times 5 is 40. So it really is only in this harmonic. I'm repeating myself to go over this to make sure it's clear. Make sure it's clear. So I think I'm done. I think I've given you enough examples. The final, just summarize here. What I'm saying is that you look at a harmonic chart. Usually we don't have the natal chart right next to it. You're looking at this 5th harmonic chart. You see these lines. These are the aspects. And again, here's the point, just to review this. This aspect, this trine, Neptune trine Pluto, might apply only to this harmonic, or it might apply to lower harmonics as well. How do you know? Look at the fraction, and if the fraction is only for this harmonic chart, then it applies only to this harmonic chart. How do I know it applies only to this harmonic chart? Because it's a trine, it's 3. 3 times 5 is 15. It's 2/15. So this one, Neptune Pluto's trine, says 2/15. This trine, Moon Mercury, on the other hand, says 1/3. So the Moon Mercury applies to other areas of life in addition to play. The Neptune and Pluto applies only to this area of life. So, as you, excuse me, losing my voice here. As you apply these ideas, as you work with harmonic charts, this is going to become very obvious, very simple, and very clear. You have to do charts. If it still sounds a little confusing, I don't think you're going to get it clear just by listening. A few people can do that, but just do charts. Do your 5th harmonic chart, especially your own chart, because you'll know your chart very well. Create your 5th harmonic chart in your software, and especially if you have the Sirius software, you can turn on this option for seeing these what the aspect is in the natal chart. But I'll show you real quickly how you do that. I'll show you I'll just click you. It's off your screen, but I'm going to click over here on the natal chart. Like I told you, I zoomed in so you don't see this whole wheel. But if I right click, let me drag this over to the captured area. I get this little window. I click on Customize. I get another little window. I click on the Aspects tab. I click on this button, Customize this aspect set. It gives me a little message. Drag this over to this area that we're capturing. And it's right over here, this checkbox. Natal aspect shown on aspect line and harmonic chart. I've got it checked, and that's why we see what the aspect is in the natal chart. Okay, so I also show that in some other videos. But that's how you turn on this feature to see what the aspect is in the natal chart. And then if you understand that you can multiply whatever the aspect is, like if it's a trine, take the 3, multiply it by what the harmonic is, we're in 5th, it's 15, and if you see 15, then it applies only to this chart, only to the chart of play and creativity, whereas this one applies to other things as well. Just do your, my point was, do your own charts. Turn on that option to see this. If you haven't set that in the Sirius software, if you have other software you don't have that feature, you can just create the harmonic chart and have the natal chart, and you'll compare, and you'll see that some of them are reducing, are actually in the natal chart, and some are not. Having this fraction, though, is really helpful for learning and for interpretation. It's fantastic, because you immediately know whether the aspect applies only to this chart or to all charts. But if you do it, you can't just listen. Do charts. Do your 5th harmonic chart. Do your 7th harmonic chart. Look at what it is in the natal chart. After a while, it'll become very, very, very clear. You know, when you were a kid and you were learning how to multiply numbers, it took a long time. You know, 2 times 7 is 14, 3 times 7 is 21. Sometimes it takes a little time. I can't just say it and presto magic, you've got it. Some of you do have it that quickly. Others just do charts, and then it becomes real obvious, very intuitive, and you wonder why it took you so long to understand it. So just do some charts, look at what's going on in the natal chart as opposed to the harmonic chart with those aspects. It'll become very obvious and very clear. You've just got to do charts and get used to the idea. Okay, my friends, I wanted to give you some practice with that and wanted to go over it because it takes a little time for some people to get the feel and the hang of it. And as you do, especially your own chart, because you're no doubt very familiar with your own chart, where the planets are, what aspects are, you'll see how this works. And in future videos on harmonic charts, I'm going to give lots of examples of interpretation, and you'll get very good with the interpretation. And that's really that's about all the fundamentals. There's a few more things I can talk about that are really subtle, but this is the heart of harmonic charts. I'm going to make some more videos on famous people and show you how you can see exactly what's going on with these famous people. I'm going to do musicians, and we'll see the style of music they play. It's amazing. By analyzing the harmonic charts, we're just going to be using all the rules that I've taught you in these 2 videos, part 1 and part 2, on what a harmonic chart is and how to interpret it. And as we do it, that also will make it very clear. Okay, my friends, a little practice there and getting used to that concept. Thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.